What you're about to listen to is episode 126 of The Fanboy. However, all throughout today's recording, I referred to it as 125. So be sure to laugh at my expense, but rest assured, this is The Fanboy, episode 126. Hi everybody, Mario-Francisco Robles, MFR here with you, and this is episode 125 of the Fanboy Podcast. How's everybody doing out there? Look, there is a lot to discuss, so I'm going to be diving right in, but just a quick tease. This episode will be concluding with a 1-hour discussion that I recorded earlier this week with Batman on Film's Bill Jet Ramey. That's right, an old friend of the show, someone who helped kind of put me on the map and kind of helped Revenge of the Fans come to be, whether he realizes it or not. It's been a while since I've had Brother Bill on the show, and I kind of wanted to discuss some stuff because, he and I have a very interesting history when it comes to Zack Snyder's Justice League. He and I were sort of, we have a hand in one of the chapters of this saga that's been unfolding for years, in that we were the first two reporters to come right out and say in the spring of 2017 that Justice League is basically getting remade. And, you'll see, we're going to do a little bit of a kind of like a history lesson or a recap of what it's been like to be sort of tracking this Justice League movie over the course of the last 6 years, as well as our own sort of intimate relationship to what ended up happening to that movie. So I'm really looking forward to sharing that with you. But the thing is, there's also like a bunch of other topics, full disclosure. Sometimes when I record a conversation in advance and I know it's like 45 minutes or an hour, I know, okay, so I can kind of go light on the topics this week because the conversation is so long. Maybe I could find like 15 to 30 minutes worth of stuff to talk about before getting to that talk. But honestly, when I was putting together the show notes, I realized this is going to be a very long episode. So if you were upset that last week there wasn't a new episode of the show, you're essentially probably going to get 2 episodes worth of content today. And you may want to pause somewhere in the middle. All right. But for now, let's go ahead and start diving through these topics because I am very, very excited. And I'm going to start things off with what has to be the biggest story of the week for me. And that is that Superman and Lois has premiered on the CW, and that I have watched it, and that I have loved it. But I need to ground all that in context. I need to sort of explain to you why that's especially meaningful for me. Because, listen, enjoying a TV series is one thing. Like yesterday I started a new comedy with my wife. We were watching AP Bio, because I love Glenn Howerton from Always Sunny in Philadelphia. So, I checked out a new series and I dug it. And now I know it's something else I can watch. But when it comes to Superman related stuff, it's never just a TV show. It's never just a movie. It literally feels like I'm getting a chance to spend some more time with my best friend. It feels like, it feels so much more urgent and personal when it's a Superman project of sorts. And look, over the years, when I talk about how much of my time I've spent waiting on Superman sequels, just a quick recap, I waited for Superman 5 for many years after Superman 4 with Christopher Reeve. And then when that got scrapped, and then it became Superman Lives, I was waiting for Superman Lives. Then I was waiting for Superman Flyby. Then I was waiting for Superman Returns. Then I was waiting for the sequel to Superman Returns. Then I was waiting for Man of Steel. And finally, I was waiting for a solo sequel to Man of Steel. And so when you combine all of that, I've spent the better part of the last 34 years waiting for a Superman movie. It's kind of astounding to think that we've only gotten 2 solo Superman movies in the last 34 years. But really, aside from those standalone years of '06 and 13, 32 of those years have been spent wondering, am I going to get another Superman movie anytime soon? And when I complain about that stuff, it's not from a place of feeling entitled, like, where's my movie? I want more of my favorite thing. Why aren't you giving me more of my favorite thing? It's more, I just miss the guy. I miss Superman. And what I want is a chance to spend more time with him. Because growing up, Superman was like, he felt like a friend. He felt soothing. He felt comforting. And that's something I needed growing up. The first several years of my life were kind of tumultuous. Some of my earliest memories were watching mom and dad yell and scream at each other and me trying to distract them so that they don't kill one another. It was me getting whisked away to El Salvador at the age of 4, not knowing if I'm going to see my dad again, and my mom trying to start a whole new life. The first several years of my life were kind of like bumpy and strange and filled with things I had to adapt to. And that's why when I discovered Superman on TV, it wasn't through the comics. It was through watching Superman 1 and 2 and 3 on television, and then seeing Superman 4 in 1987 when I was 4 years old. Seeing Superman always somehow made me feel better. Even though on some level, of course, I knew it was all fake, there was just something about this man who cares, and this man who just wants to protect, and this man who, despite the sadness and loneliness and that feeling of being an alien and being alone and being an outcast and an outsider, despite all that, he just wants to help. And that's always something that comforted me a lot as a child. Seeing Superman felt soothing to me. It felt like, Superman could save me. And on days when things were a little too dark or a little too heavy, or I was being asked to grow up a little too quickly, I always kind of had this thing where, I could still look to the skies, and there's somebody out there fighting for us, fighting for me. And maybe that sounds a little schmaltzy or a little over the top, but it is what it is. When Superman tells Lois, when she asks him, who are you, after that helicopter rescue in Superman the movie, and he says, a friend, he really, that to me is what he felt like. And it's kind of been a through line through all of my favorite adaptations of Superman, because it's not just Reeve that I love. Every version of Superman that speaks to me is the version where he's being selfless and kind and just being a friend and a protector to somebody who feels vulnerable or hurt or forgotten or, someone who's been wronged. And, who wouldn't love to feel like there is a guardian out there who could show up at a moment's notice to get us out of danger or get us out of a scary situation. And growing up, especially kind of being a lonely kid, not having any siblings, not having a mother who really seemed to understand the value of socializing her son and maybe setting up visits with his class friends or making slumber party things or whatever, for whatever reason, I'm not mad at her for it. It just wasn't in her ecosystem. But, I didn't really socialize. I didn't have my first real friend who I could speak to on the phone and hang out with outside of class until I was 14 years old. So those first 14 years, there was a lot of lonely times. And there was a lot of times of me sort of locked in my imagination, coming up with fantastical stories that were kind of an escape from what was going on, or just kind of an escape that I needed because otherwise I was going to drive myself nuts. And Superman was always just this soothing, peaceful force in all of that. And he always kind of made me feel stronger somehow. I know it doesn't make a lot of sense. And a lot of this is I'm sharing the thoughts of, a child in single digit ages. But, in some way that manifested itself in this desire just to spend more time with him. After Superman 4 and the waiting game began, it started becoming this just like, I just want to see him fly. I want to see him saving lives. I want to hear his voice. I want to just spend time with him. I don't want to see an origin again. I'm not necessarily interested in which comic book villain they could bring in that's going to make it super cool. For me, it was honestly just, I want to spend more time with my hero. Whether he's real or not, I want to spend more time with my hero. And that's what makes Superman and Lois so special. Because, look, I don't flock to just every and any Superman property. I just don't. I may be a diehard Superman fan, but I still decide which paths I want to take and which stories I want to dive into. So, like, for example, I never watched Smallville, and that surprises some people. Because, Smallville ran for 10 or 11 years. And when you hear me talk about Superman, you would assume I'd want to watch a 10-season series about his upbringing and his path to becoming Superman. You'd think that would be up my alley. But just based on the trailers and just based on some of the things I heard during the first season, it became very clear to me that this is not really the version of the story that I'm all that interested in. This feels more like a soap opera. This feels more like for teenagers. This feels more like, creature of the week on a limited budget, kind of like dollar store Superman storytelling. That's how it felt to me. And I'm, if that offends you as someone who loved Smallville, I'm very sorry. But I only bring that up to sort of point out that, like, I don't just blindly follow anything that has a Superman S on the cover. I need to be interested in it. And even with his earlier appearances here in the Arrowverse, this version of Superman, Tyler Hoechlin's Superman, didn't get me to start watching the Arrowverse shows. Even though I did drop in and see a couple of his early appearances, and even though I did kind of think like, the tone there kind of nails it, especially in the first two appearances he makes in Supergirl. And then I dropped back in to watch some of the crossovers. But all in all, in a way, like, there was a separation between me and that Superman. It was like, the Arrowverse has their own little Superman. Isn't that cute? I'm over here waiting for my movie, but at least those Arrowverse people have their adorable little Superman who could, with his limited budgetary abilities. And, it's just, I kind of had like a patronizing view of this Superman. So I didn't come into the premiere on Tuesday with very high expectations. I came in, listen, as I've said on this show the last few episodes, the promotional materials kind of definitely got my attention because it absolutely made it stand apart from the other glimpses of this Superman that we've gotten so far. And, a part of me was like, maybe that was just good marketing. Maybe they know that, like, if this looks like every other Arrowverse show, it's only going to appeal to the viewers we already have. But we would love to appeal to a broader audience. So let's just cut the trailers in a way where it doesn't, rely too heavily on the Arrowverse stuff. So, I was a little bit cynical. But then watching the actual pilot unfold, it's very clear very quickly that this is its own thing. This is like a fresh start. And yes, I know that there will be technical connections to, and I'm sure there will be crossover stuff. And, some of this was actually set up in the last Arrowverse crossover. So I'm fully aware that this is part of that universe. But in watching this, none of the Arrowverse connections come up, really. Like in that opening montage where they're essentially showing you who this Superman is and what the bullet points are that you need to know in order to, continue on this journey with him. None of those bullet points were from Supergirl or The Flash or Arrow, any of the stuff that he's done with the pre-existing Arrowverse cast or those characters. So, right from the beginning, it was like, oh, well, no, this really is like the start of something new. And it really does feel like I can just forget about any other thoughts I had on this version of Superman, because this is basically where we're starting from now. This is where this story begins, and this is all I need to care about. So that was cool in and of itself, too, because I was also secretly worried, like, if I don't know all the geeky twists and turns of what's happening on the, that Arrowverse universe, am I going to be lost here? And, I just love that it really didn't connect to any of that. And it really felt just like we're starting from scratch with a Superman who's already mid-career, who's already in action. And not just that, but now he's in a setting where you've never seen him this way before. Superman, the family man, Superman, the man who's been around the world a million times and saved so many lives. But when he comes home, he's still just trying to figure out how to be the best dad and husband he can be. It's such a neat way to sort of approach the character. And in a way, such a relief that this series glosses basically straight over the origin. We don't have to watch Krypton blow up again. We don't have to hear any inspiring speeches from Jor-El. Like, they literally catch us up in like 3 minutes while throwing little, Easter eggs at us too. Like Tyler Hoechlin in the Max Fleischer costume, and recreating Action Comics #1, all kinds of little things like that. Even the first rescue within the first 10 minutes of the series is an homage to Superman 3. So, there's a lot of different touchstones that they go to very early in the film, very early in the episode. But all along the way, you're realizing that this is a Superman who's already pretty much done all of the things that you've seen him do. No matter what the version is, that is sort of in the DNA of this Superman. So you could bring whatever aspects of your fandom that you have to this version of the character. It was a very sort of ingenious way to start the series off by basically kind of acting like anything you've ever seen or heard about him could essentially be true, because we've molded all of that into his backstory in a way, It was just that was really cool. But what that did for me, seeing how they started the series off, seeing that it wasn't just great trailers, but that this actually is a series that's being treated with importance, and that where the effects look actually pretty damn great. And this looks like a movie, seeing that and realizing what I was realizing, it suddenly started to sink in on me. It was like, wait a minute, it's finally happening. I've been waiting since 1987 to spend more time with Superman. And now, not only did I see him this past Tuesday, but I never have to wait again. It's going to come out every Tuesday, a new episode. And with the early buzz on this, there's no reason to think it's not going to get renewed for another few seasons probably. So in a way, it's like, this can't be real. Me as a long-suffering Superman fan, I almost don't know how to compute this. I get to see a Superman who is recognizable to me, who's in an all-new chapter of his career that we haven't seen yet, played by actors who seem to really appreciate the mythology that they're bringing to life, written by people who seem to really love the character and are taking all the best parts of his history and imbuing this series with them. It's almost overwhelming. Like, it feels too good to be true. Is this what being a Batman fan is like? Is this what being a Spider-Man fan is like? Is this what it's like liking one of those characters where there's just always more movies about them? There's always some new thing to enjoy? Because as a Superman fan, I got to tell you, I don't know what it's like to feel this lucky. I don't know what it's like to say, whoa, I found a representation of this character that I adore, and I get to see it every week? Like, what is this? Is this how some of you have been living all this time? I'm so jealous of you. As a Superman fan, I literally don't know what this is like. And as I'm sitting there watching it this past Tuesday, it was just this feeling of like, oh my gosh, it's actually happening. Because even like Superman Returns, and even though that was more time with Superman, or at least one that I recognized, it still felt like it was setting up sequels. It still felt like it was reacquainting us with, the older Superman and then setting up where they could go next. It felt like a quick sort of tease of getting to spend more time with him, because here's his return. But okay, now he's returned. Now I want to see the continued adventures of Superman. And we never got to see those continued adventures. And then when Man of Steel comes out, it resets the clock. And now we got to watch the origin again. And we have to watch a story that in a lot of ways covers a lot of the same beats as Superman 1 and 2. So it's like, it was a slight sort of been there, done that. And so to now actually be here in this place where we can get those continued adventures of Superman, where now we're after all of that stuff. That to me is like the most exciting thing about all of this. But I also have to give credit where credit's due, because Tyler Hoechlin really won me over in that 1 hour premiere. I've seen little tastes, like I said. I've seen quick glimpses of his other appearances on Supergirl and in the crossover episodes. And I got to tell you, I haven't had a great impression of him. I liked the costume, and I liked that he was playing sort of a gentler, kinder Superman. But I didn't think too much of him as an actor, and it still kind of felt like, cosplay. It felt like, oh, they found a guy who could, fill out the suit and do a reasonable facsimile of what Superman seems like. This time, though, you almost got to think that someone pulled him aside and said, Tyler, we want you to forget everything that happened prior to this. This is your show. You are the new Superman. There's no movies in the works right now. You are Superman now. So go ahead, dig deep, dive into this role and make it yours, because you're the guy right now. Because I almost want to curse. Anyway, he showed up. He showed up big time. And it goes to show you, sometimes you can't knock an actor. Sometimes it's the material. Sometimes there's stuff that, they're out, extenuating circumstances that affect the performance in ways that, we as viewers can't fully appreciate. And then when you see that same actor who was terrible in something else suddenly be amazing in a different project, that's when you realize, oh, it's not that the performer doesn't know what they're doing. They were just in the wrong setting. They were in the wrong situation with a bad script or a bad director. So Tyler Hoechlin, to me, kind of pulled one of those like Cinderella stories where he went from being sort of like the bargain bin Superman that, the Arrowverse got to use, to being like, I saw Superman. Like when he's speaking to General Lane after the nuclear reactor, save, he sounds like Superman. And when he speaks to Lois, and when he speaks to his sons, like his Clark, it felt amazing. It was not the Clark Kent, I'm an oaf and I'm, a klutz knocking things over. He made him just like a mild-mannered reporter who's just sort of a little bit awkward and a little excitable, and someone you would never really suspect of being Superman. Someone who doesn't really have a lot of poise and who's a little sort of wiry in their energy. Like he made his Clark different than his Superman. And that's always such an important thing. If you're going to be a Superman actor and the only real difference between the two is the clothing and the glasses, then you've done a big disservice. You're not showing why it is that people wouldn't connect the two. Because that's the point of a good Clark Kent disguise. The Clark Kent, it's not just the glasses. It's no one would ever think that this forgettable, vanilla little nothing is actually Earth's greatest savior. And you have to play Clark in a way where he is just sort of, forgettable and someone you would never even speak in the same sentence as Superman. And Tyler Hoechlin showed he could do that too. So he showed me a Superman I can get behind. He showed me a Clark Kent I can get behind. I found myself getting emotional in that montage, and I don't even know these characters yet, but watching this Clark and this Lois meet, and this Clark and this Lois get engaged, and the love and the chemistry that they were able to portray for the cameras, and even the quick, tiny glimpse when they're showing Martha the positive pregnancy test. Like, Elizabeth Tulloch, who plays Lois, doesn't even have a line in that. She just has a quick moment where she's sitting there beside Clark looking at Martha to see what her reaction is to the pregnancy test, and her eyes are filled with tears of joy as she can. She's excited to see Martha's reaction to the fact that she's going to be a grandma. There is just so much like genuine emotion and oh man, I'm getting goosebumps on my legs just talking about it. The feeling of watching a Superman mythology unfold on the screen in a way that is loving but multi-dimensional. This was not just like, by golly, I'm your happy-go-lucky Superman and everything's fine and I'm a Boy Scout and everything is very sort of simple to figure out and, here's a big problem that we're going to solve in the next 40 minutes. It didn't feel like that at all. It felt like, whoa, we're dealing with serious stuff here. We're dealing with a son who has social anxiety disorder. We're dealing with an America that's in somewhat of disarray. They touched on that. There's a scene there between Lois and Clark and Lana and her husband, whose name escapes me right now. But the husband basically confronts Lois on her being this big city liberal sort of fake newsy reporter. He doesn't use those terms, but he basically speaks to her as if you're this, you're one of these elites who doesn't really understand what rural life is like, and you don't know what a single day in our lives are like, yet you write about it all the time and you have all these judgments about us. And, and listen, it's such a quick line, but it shows some of the central division in America right now. It shows some of that, the rural versus the big cities, the right versus the left. I don't think this is going to be a political show, but the fact that they incorporated some of that element and the fact that they were going after banks and their predatory loan practices, which is what the bank, that subplot with Lois trying to figure out how it was that this mortgage got passed through the bank and Martha's about to lose the farm. That's a real problem in this country. Predatory loans, that's a real issue that's putting a lot of people in hardship. And here's a Superman series shining a spotlight on it. It's kind of amazing. But at the same time, I guess I shouldn't be surprised. Superman has a history of seeming very sort of corny and broad, and yet tackling serious real world issues. I recently went back and read the first Superman comic, and I was kind of blown away because, here we are in 1938. And you know what one of the first things he's dealing with is? He's dealing with a man who hits his wife. He's dealing with domestic abuse. He was dealing with there were 2 or 3 saves he makes in his very first story. And they were all very socially relevant, interesting things. It's not, I was expecting to go see and now in the first, in Action Comics 1, Superman fights a giant mole man who wants to come and, attack the city. I was expecting some sort of paint by numbers. Here's a good guy. Here's a bad guy with a ridiculous plot. And here's Superman to stop him. But right from the beginning, Siegel and Schuster said Superman fights for the common man. Superman fights for those who can't fight for themselves. And I guess, it's pretty great for me that Superman and Lois seems to be incorporating some of those elements while obviously also exploring larger sort of sci-fi stories. We have that whole thing with the Stranger, who we find out at the end is Lex Luthor from another Earth. So, there is obviously all the comic book goodness of that. But the fact that we're talking about things like, banks taking advantage of poor people, We're talking about teens who are kind of over medicated and dealing with all of these social disorders and how alone and isolated they feel and how they try to, end their lives. Teen suicides have been up in recent years. We had a quick mention of the firefighter who's who has to see dead bodies at burnt meth labs, and meanwhile in our country, we're dealing with an opioid crisis and we're dealing with a meth epidemic. It's I don't want to just dwell too heavily on those things, but I got to say, hearing all of that stuff brought up in this pilot made me realize this is the series I've been waiting for. These are the stories I've been waiting for. If you go back to last year, at some point I was right here on this very show pitching what would have been my perfect Superman series. And at the time I said I wanted to be on HBO Max because, I didn't know CW could pull this off. And I said, I want to see a Superman who is the idealistic, well-intentioned Boy Scout that we know, but dropped into today's America. And I want the journalism aspect to be important. I want Lois to be kind of, doing an expose on big things. I want a Superman who's dealing with issues that can be seen almost as metaphorical for our time. Like if Brainiac becomes a metaphorical stand-in for our obsession with technology and how technology is eventually going to destroy us, I would love that. I was talking about a Superman story that has all of the comic book, sort of trimmings, but beneath the surface has something to say, or and has like a real beating heart to it. And I guess I don't need HBO Max for that. I guess I've got my show, and I've got my Superman. And it's played by Tyler Hoechlin. None of this makes sense to me. Tuesday blew my mind. I got to be perfectly honest. That premiere, if you haven't seen it yet, and if you haven't seen it yet, I'm sorry, I've spoiled a few things. But listen, it's been several days now, okay? So cut me some slack. You had to know that if you're listening to the Fanboy on the week that a new Superman series comes out, you're going to hear a lot about that Superman series, okay? So if you haven't checked it out yet, I strongly suggest you do, whether you have to use the on-demand function of your cable provider or you have to download the CW app. If you're like me and you love Superman, and you've been waiting to kind of see him fly again into new uncharted territory, then Superman and Lois has arrived, and now that's what you've got. And if you actually want to hear me break down that premiere in even greater detail, I have a show for you to listen to, because I appeared on the Multiverse Musings vidcast with Adam Basciano and Mr. Stephen Marshall, and we spoke about that premiere for like an hour and a half. And it was a very, very excited conversation because I think all three of us were just jumping up and down, and we all have different levels of fandom when it comes to Superman. And, it's totally worth your time. If what you like doing is hearing me gush about Superman and analyzing the parts of his mythology that speak to me the most or whatever, if you enjoy hearing me gush about Superman, or if you've been listening to me for years, bitching and moaning about Superman and how he's been depicted in these last few years, you owe it to yourself to look up the latest episode of the Multiverse Musings vidcast, because now instead of hearing me bitch and moan, you're going to hear me ecstatic. And also, Adam broke up the discussion so that we basically kind of go through the entire episode to all the key aspects and key elements of the premiere and kind of go beat by beat in a round table sharing what we thought of it. So if you want to hear an even more detailed analysis of what blew me away about Superman and Lois, I strongly recommend the Multiverse Musings vidcast as a companion to this week's episode. I also showed up on the Fortress of Solitude podcast this week with my friend Sergio Pereira. I'm sure that's not how they say it in South Africa. He's South African. But I can't look at that name and not say it in the Latino way. Sergio Pereira and I got together and talked about scoop culture. So if you want to, hear kind of what we think about scoop culture and scoopers and how things sort of kind of, got lost in the shuffle of like somehow somewhere along the way, it became more about clout and social media attention than it did about simply sharing information with fans that they may be excited about. That, you heard something cool. Here's what I heard, guys. Instead of it becoming that, it became, look at me tainting your opinions of certain movies before they even come out. Because doom and gloom gets me lots of retweets. So, if you're interested in that, look up the Fortress of Solitude podcast and check out that conversation I had with Sergio. Well, I had a lot of interesting conversations this week, huh? I spoke to Bill Ramey over in Texas. I spoke to Sergio over in South Africa. And the Multiverse Musings, we have Stephen in the UK and Adam in Canada. So I've basically been discussing geeky stuff with fellow geeks around the world this week. That's pretty sweet, huh? I hadn't even thought of that. But, this job ain't bad. It's funny I call it a job. I ain't getting paid to do this. Maybe one day I'll get a sponsor or something, and this will actually pay off for me. Here we are with 125 episodes of podcasts that I've been paid $0 to create for you. But either way, this job definitely has its perks. But, I'm trying to think about any closing thoughts on Superman and Lois before I move on. Just, it's interesting to me the way it takes the best parts of Man of Steel and kind of grounds the series in that feel and aesthetic. Because remember, I loved the first hour and a half or so of Man of Steel. My issues arise in the third act. And the funny thing is, even the director of the premiere said that. He said he was inspired by Man of Steel and that there's a very distinct reason why this series sort of seems to, take some cues from what Zack Snyder did. But he also acknowledged that the third act is kind of where things come off the rails. So it's like, so even the director understands my sensibility as a Superman fan. This director may even share my sensibility as a Superman fan. So this is really cool. This is just it's such a great feeling after all these years of knowing like, wait a minute, Superman is in good hands with a good cast and I get to see him every week. I don't know what this is like, but I'm looking forward to finding out. And in the weeks to come, I'm sure I'm going to be watching every week. So I'll give you updated Superman and Lois thoughts as new episodes come out. If you guys have questions or specific things that happen in the episodes that you'd like me to sort of dissect, I'd be happy to do that because I'm sort of, I kind of have a reputation for seeing more than what's there. I have a tendency for like spotting little connections that not all people do. And I do some of that on the multiverse thing. You should check it out. There were a few takes that was like, I don't think anyone's talking about this way. But yeah, listen, when it comes to Superman, I get real deep. So if you want to hear more about my deep thoughts on that, just let me know. But for now, I think a half hour was enough time to spend on Superman and Lois. Listen, I could probably talk about it another hour and a half. But for now, suffice it to say, it was a great experience, and I cannot wait to have that experience again every Tuesday. But now moving on. It's been interesting since we last spoke. Since we last spoke, there's been like a Latino takeover of DC. Have you guys been following all this? So last week, they announced that a Blue Beetle movie is coming about the Mexican version of the character, Jaime Reyes. And they've already got a director. And he spoke about what an honor it is to be directing the first Latino DC film. So that was announced. And then we also found out that the cast of Shazam 2, Fury of the Gods, has now added Rachel Zegler. Rachel Zegler, who was an unknown actress that Steven Spielberg plucked out of obscurity for his upcoming West Side Story adaptation. He basically kind of made her a star. He cast an unknown as Maria. By the way, West Side Story has a special place in my heart because I've acted in 2 productions of it. So she's playing Maria, which is a pivotal role, but she's a young kid. She's like 16 or 17. She goes to high school here in the city. She's a New Yorker like me too. I'd love to get her on the show at some point, but she was plucked out of obscurity about 1.5 years ago for this West Side Story movie. And now she's just joined Shazam! Fury of the Gods in what is being described as a key role. And even though her name is Rachel Zegler, she actually is part Colombian. So, so we have the Mexican Blue Beetle. We have Rachel Zegler, the Colombian actress who's playing Maria in West Side Story, joining Shazam. And we also got Sasha Calle. I want to say Calle because that's how you pronounce, Calle. But Sasha Calle is our new Supergirl. And that's something else that I have to touch on because that was another big piece of Superman adjacent news last week. That Supergirl is going to be in The Flash. It wasn't just announced. It was revealed in a very touching way. Director Andy Muschietti released like a 2-minute clip of the Zoom call or Skype call that he had with Sasha when he informed her that she was about to become the Girl of Steel. And it's such an amazing, if you haven't seen it yet, you should look it up because when you see her realize what he's saying, when you see her realize that her entire life is changing now, it's, it's an indescribable feeling. And I'm excited. There were questions of like, is anyone upset that she's Latina and not a blonde girl, as is typically depicted? No, I never care about that stuff. And then another concern I've heard people say is like, well, hang on a second. In this Flash movie, is there going to be a Flash in it? There's so many characters. There's all this, there's all that. How the heck are they going to fit all these characters in? It's getting overstuffed and overblown and yada, yada, yada. I'm not worried about that either. Because, we don't know how long any of these characters are going to be on screen. We don't know if some of this is just quick glimpses to set up later movies. Especially since we know that the Flash is going to be using the Speed Force and he's going to be kind of jumping from place to place, possibly. We've already seen some of that in the trailer for Zack Snyder's Justice League. The way he can seemingly run between dimensions is going to be explored in that. And we know that this movie is going to, lean heavily into the multiverse concept. So there's very much a possibility that a lot of these characters we're hearing about are like, as he's going from Earth to Earth, perhaps looking for something or lost somewhere in the Speed Force, he could just be popping up real quick into different worlds and we're catching quick glimpses of other stuff. And it's almost more like fan service to make us go, wait a minute, that's, you know what I mean? And before you know it, it's over. So I'm not going to be worried about The Flash until I see a trailer. Because just merely having all of these characters and all of these elements in there, that's not enough for me to say, oh no, that they're going to totally blow this. There's too many things going on. This is overstuffed. The Flash is going to get lost in his own movie. I don't know any of those things. And neither does anyone else. So all I could say is wait till you see a teaser and then judge for yourself whether or not they buried the Flash under all of these other things that are happening in his movie. I have a feeling that's not going to be the case, but we'll see what happens. But yeah, the story of her casting is very touching for me. I always love it when, that moment when a star is born, when someone gets plucked from relative obscurity and suddenly their life is different. Sasha Calle, no idea. I should probably Google that. I'll find that out soon enough. But Sasha, I know that she's an actress and she's been in some stuff and, she's not a complete unknown. But let's face it, once you're Supergirl in a major motion picture, your life is different now, And even the thing with Rachel Zegler is interesting because right after they announced her casting in Shazam 2, she shared a tweet. She retweeted something that she had tweeted in April of 2019. I think this is before she had even been cast. This is still when, pre West Side Story, when she was just a fan, who enjoyed movies. She tweeted out, "I just literally ran into Zachary Levi, or Levy. Such a nice guy. Loved the movie. Can't wait for a sequel." And now she's in the sequel. What a difference 2 years can make. I love that stuff. To think how different things are for her moving forward now. I enjoy all that kind of stuff tremendously. So, okay, next topic. We also got a Mortal Kombat trailer. And I'm not going to spend too much time on that. Just suffice it to say, it was pretty badass. I don't know if you've had a chance to see it yet, but there's a red band trailer that came out for the upcoming Mortal Kombat reboot. And similar to the other Warner Brothers stuff that's coming out this year, it's going to be arriving on HBO Max and in theaters at the same time. So, yeah, they dropped a trailer for it. It looks crazy. It looks like a darker, grown-up, even bloodier version of what we've already, what we already know Mortal Kombat to be known for. It's the part that I keep replaying in my mind is at some point Sub-Zero stabs Scorpion, and as blood is spurting out of the wound, he freezes the blood, turns it into a blade, and stabs him with it. I'm like, I need this movie right now. It's crazy. This movie's going to be nuts. And, as someone who loved the original trilogy of games and who still I low-key love the original movie. I know it's not considered a classic, and it's basically a ripoff of Bruce Lee Enter the Dragon in a lot of ways, the plot and all that. I really liked the first Mortal Kombat movie. And to me, this feels like, what a Mortal Kombat movie would have been back then if we had this kind of technology, and we were cool with this kind of approach. So, listen, it's... If you're sleeping on Mortal Kombat, I don't know what's wrong with you. I mean, maybe you don't like the games, or maybe it's just not your thing. But if you're into Mortal Kombat, this upcoming movie looks like it's going to be exactly what us fans like. And I'm not the only one who feels that way. That red band trailer broke records. Deadline reported a couple days ago exclusively that this broke the record for red band trailers. It got 116 million views in less than a week. Okay, just to put that into perspective, a few weeks back, I was talking to you about the views for the Batman trailer from DC Fandom, for the views for the Godzilla vs. Kong trailer, and I think the Godzilla vs. Kong trailer at the time was at around 125 million views or something like that. And this is right around that within a week. And meanwhile, it's red band. It's not meant for all eyes. You could understand Godzilla versus Kong, or Kong versus Godzilla, whatever the order is. You could almost understand that getting a huge amount of eyeballs. But Mortal Kombat, what? And it's red band? This is probably going to be half that. But apparently there is a huge appetite for this. And I think it always kind of puts into perspective that we may all be about all the cape shit and all the superhero stuff, but there's clearly an appetite for blockbusters that don't involve Marvel or DC, because some of these blockbusters lately are getting more views and more hype than the stuff that us superhero fans tend to obsess about all the time. I just think that's interesting and sort of unexpected. If you would ask me, which one has the most views? Matt Reeves' the Batman trailer or the Mortal Kombat one? To me, of course, I would say the Batman, but I'm wrong. So that's what happens when you're stuck in your own little algorithm in social media and you think all the things that you like are what everyone else likes. No, that's just your algorithm keeping you glued to your app. Sorry, I'm just going to mention that from time to time. Okay. All right, yeah, another important piece of news is Spider-Man 3 just got a freaking title finally. And it was after some interesting back and forth where they were trolling us. There was a night where Tom Holland, Zendaya, and what's his name? The fella who plays his best friend. I forget right now. But they each tweeted out fake titles and fake posters. They all had home in the title. It was like Phone Home and Home Wrecker and No Homies and stuff like that. It was pretty funny. People got pretty frustrated because, of course, you had, fake scoopers out there trying to say, this is it. I know what it is. And then going, I mean, never mind, because nobody knew until the next day. But I could say things about that, but I'm not going to say that right now. So we got the title. We got No Way Home. And more exciting than that for me this week was sort of realizing that the size and scale of this movie could very well be life-changing for me. Because over on the Marvel end of things, Spider-Man has always been my number one. And growing up, I think for a long time there, Batman was actually in third place. I was a Superman, Spider-Man, Batman fan growing up. And, some of these rumors about Spider-Man 3, some of it's stuff I've already covered here on this show in previous episodes, so I'm not going to rehash for you. But one rumor in particular that made its way to my head finally, and that I believe, is that Matt Murdock, as played by Charlie Cox, the Daredevil from Netflix, may very well pop up in this. And when you combine that with everything, when you combine that with the rumors of Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, when you combine that with the confirmations of Alfred Molina and Jamie Foxx, when you know that Sam Raimi's coming in to do a multiverse Doctor Strange movie and that he's hired Danny Elfman to come score it, who did the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy. There's obviously lots of different things about this that are going to make your head explode when you think about what this could be. And these rumors that we're going to see some sort of sequence where all three cinematic Peter Parkers face off against villains from their past. I mean, this is going to be insane. But then you add to that Matt Murdock, Charlie Cox may have filmed some Daredevil stuff, or at the very least, some Matt Murdock stuff in this. And I don't know about you, but to me, this feels like this film could be, just one for the ages in terms of its scale, the scope of the story, and how much cool stuff they're trying to fit in there. And I listen, and I've been critical of the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies. I enjoyed Homecoming, and that still remains to me the highest point of Tom Holland as Spider-Man. Far From Home, didn't care for it at all, and I'm not, I'm not easily impressed. So even if I'm a fan of a character, I'm still not just going to love it blindly. And Far From Home had a lot of deficiencies for me. But Spider-Man 3, with some of this stuff that there were, I should say now, Spider-Man No Way Home sounds like it's going to include some things that could very well just send me into fanboy hysterics when it comes out next Christmas. And I can't wait. And the last thing I'll say on that is, as part of these, the Spider-Man update, Tom Holland referred to the fact that there's a certain fight sequence that they've been working on for a month. And that tells me that's the sequence we've been talking about. That's that top secret sequence where all the Spider-Verse dimensions are going to kind of fold in onto one. And we're going to see our Spider-Men fighting their villains all as part of this grander story, So I just had to touch on that because the Matt Murdock rumor's been out there for a while, but I didn't realize that it was Brandon Davis from comicbook.com who kind of put it out there and said that he's already filmed something for Spider-Man 3, that Charlie Cox has already visited the set in Atlanta and shot some stuff for it. When I saw that it was Davis putting his name on that, that's when I'm like, oh wait, so this might actually happen. I can't, this just feels like a fanboy wet dream right now, and, I'm about to do something that I haven't done in a while we're in this realm of Marvel and multiverses and all that. I'm going to do a little bit of a casting scoop right now, just for you watching or listening this show. Are you ready? Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness will include, drum roll please, Agent Carter. Haley Atwell is on the official behind-the-scenes cast list for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. And when I look this up, there's like a vague rumor that floated around some time ago that she may be in it, but it has not been confirmed in any kind of official capacity. And I couldn't even find like the article that purported it. But there was some like aggregate website that mentioned something about her possibly being in it. And I'm here to tell you that if you're a fan of Agent Carter, if you're a fan of Haley Atwell as Agent Carter, you're going to get to see her in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. And that's interesting, right? Because he's in the present day. We know Haley Atwell as, she was young and playing that version of Agent Carter. It's decades and decades before the events of Doctor Strange. So I guess as part of this multiverse stuff, we're going to see him, travel in time or go to an alternate world where she's Captain America, possibly, so just kind of wanted to put that out there that I heard about the Haley Atwell thing. And I felt like I got to share this with my peeps. So now you guys know. Okay. But all right. So I think at last it is time for the conversation with Bill of Batman on Film. We're going to go through a fairly in-depth breakdown of Justice League from start to finish, from when the project was first announced to how it turned into that theatrical cut that we got, and to now how we're getting the Snyder Cut next month. We're like 3 weeks away from it. And I just had to have Bill on to discuss. So enjoy. So right now it is my pleasure to bring on a guest who has not been here on the Fanboy in quite some time. He's an old favorite. He's one of my longtime friends in this here movie blogging, podcasting biz. He is the one and only Bill Jet Ramey of Batman on Film. How you doing, brother Bill?
I'm good. Better than last week.
Yeah, I bet.
If you watch the news, Texas had the entire state.
Yeah.
Not just the northern parts. The entire state had a huge winter storm, and we were under freezing temperatures. I mean, it got to -1 here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area a couple of days, and 6, 7, 8, 9 inches of snow, ice. And just shut everything down, rolling blackouts, crazy time.
It boggles the mind that an entire state of that size and that close to the border can suddenly hit, -1 and be blanketed by snow.
Yeah.
I mean, you never saw that coming, right?
Oh, well, you know what? It was predicted that we were going to get a winter storm, but nothing like this.
Yeah.
We've had a little bit of snow and ice storms every once in a blue moon, but not this. This was completely, I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah.
And I've been through hurricanes. I used to, I spent 54 years of my 55-year-old life living in the Houston area near the Gulf Coast, and I've been through hurricanes, but this really shut things down worse than I've ever seen.
Yeah, and hopefully you and yours are okay right now, though.
Yeah,
like you're doing
fine.
okay in your part.
We came out a lot better than a lot of other people. A lot of people are still out there, still hurting. So if you're watching and you want to contribute, I'm a Red Cross. I'm a Salvation Army guy. I contributed. There's a lot of people that lost their homes and water damage. Anyway, we can get off.
But I'm glad that your new home is okay, and I've been really enjoying the last few months of seeing the updates on how the the Batman on Film office is coming along there and the new digs. And I was saying it's lucky that you moved in there before this happened, right? Like were you closer or further from the bad stuff where you used to be?
I would be further away. I say that, but what's funny is Houston got it worse. Houston was worse off, even though they didn't have as much snow and ice.
Interesting.
But because I will say the Dallas area and up in the Panhandle, they are a little more prepared for this because they do get that more often than Southeast Texas or the Valley, Rio Grande Valley. So
Yeah.
um, they had it a lot worse. I've been through an ice storm in Houston, and
Yeah.
it's nuts. It shuts everything down. It did up here, but
Yeah. I got you. But okay.
yeah.
Believe it or not, I didn't bring you on to talk about snowstorms today. I brought you on today because we are less than a month from the arrival of a certain film, and it happens to be a film that you and I have a unique sort of vantage point on because of sort of our history with this overall story of the alternate cut of Justice League and all that. And honestly, in general, I want to just talk Justice League with you because you, as the devout Batman fan that you are, me as the devout Superman fan that I am, a Justice League movie should naturally be a huge deal for you and I. And I kind of want to go through like the milestones that have brought us up to March 18th next month. You're kind of like recap sort of and just kind of run through some of these points with you. So I'm just curious. At the very outset of the movie, when they first announced it, before BVS had come out, remember there was this whole thing where DC kind of held like a press event and they unveiled this slate of all these different movies that were coming out over the next 5 years. And there's where they said, we were going to get Justice League 1 in November, and then November of 2017, then Justice League 2 in November of 2019 and all that. So at that state of things, you had only seen Man of Steel and you'd probably seen some trailers for BVS. So you hear Justice League is coming. It's parts 1 and 2, and it's going to be directed by Zack Snyder. What was your initial feel on this Justice League movie?
Well, just disclaimer: I'm a solo Batman. I'm a solo Superman, solo superhero guy. I prefer the solo movies. I'm not a big team up movie, especially with Batman with these fantastical godlike beings. But look, we had the Dark Knight trilogy, which I adore, and I said, you know what, I'm up for a different take on Batman. I am someone who, and I've said many times, I borderline love Man of Steel.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
I still do. I'll defend that film. From just because I love it.
Yeah,
Or borderline love it. So there's some, yeah.
And the good news is you no longer have to defend it from me because I've actually come around on that.
Around to it.
Yeah,
Okay.
I remember 3 years ago or so I had you on the show and I went to town on that third act and you kind of had to defend it. Well, you no longer have to defend it from me because Man of Steel has grown on me. But I'm sorry, so keep going. I know you borderline loved it.
I've got issues with the third act as well, and I think that's probably what prevents me from saying I love them. I love it, but I was really ready for. I think Man of Steel teed up a true Superman film, full blown Superman, perfectly. With the Welcome to the Planet line at the end of the movie, and I was a little bit, even though injecting Batman into what's technically a sequel, Man of Steel, really not. That's fine. I was a huge Ben Affleck fan, still am. He is someone I wanted to play Batman for a long time, even going back to the late 90s when there was talk of year one.
Yeah.
When he was becoming a big marquee leading man action type,
so you went back that far back. You thought this guy should be Bruce? Interesting.
Yeah,
I didn't know it went that far back.
Yes, and once I became a fan of his directing, I wanted him to direct Batman films. So the idea that I don't like Ben Affleck, and I am not a Ben Affleck, and I'm a hater of his Batman is just not true.
Well, we're going to get into all the weird misconceptions of all that in a sec, because I know where that started, and we'll get there in a sec. But just at this point, it's late 2015. They've just unveiled this slate. We haven't seen BVS yet, and Zack Snyder's doing Justice League 1 and 2. What was your initial feeling on it?
I'm good. I was on board with BVS. You can go back and listen to our podcast or anything I wrote back then.
Yeah.
I was all in.
Okay.
All in.
Okay.
And I was fine with Justice League.
Yeah. Okay, and now sort of the next stage, sort of chronologically, would be now you've seen BVS, and now you have a better sense of where Snyder's taking things. Now, at that point, how are you feeling about Justice League? Were you gung-ho still, or were you like, uh-oh?
Well, there's a story, a little bit I want
No,
take
bring it.
much time telling it, but
Yeah.
I went to the press junket for BVS, or yes, for BVS in March of 2016.
Yeah.
And I was excited. I had a Ben Affleck logo,
Yeah.
that BVS bat logo hat.
Oh, I want that hat. Are you still using it? All right, sorry, keep
I've
going.
got it. I've got it. Yes, I've got it somewhere still. And I wore it to the press junket the next day. But I saw the film the night before.
Yeah.
All fired up, excited, and I knew when I got to the screening that something was up because I had to sign a non-disclosure agreement.
Oh, that's not normal. Yeah,
which I'd never had to do with any film, Man of Steel, any of the Dark Knight trilogy films. When I went to those press junkets, ever,
wow.
I could not bring a guest. I couldn't. My wife was with me. She always went to the screenings with me. That didn't happen.
Wow.
I had to go solo, and then I saw the film, and
You understood? Yeah.
I got it. I knew something. I got it, and I was not a fan of it. I was thinking about this morning, Mario. I went back and looked at my review, and I wasn't being honest when I wrote that review.
Yeah.
I've tried to
sugarcoat
a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think at the end I said, it's not that I don't like BVS, but it's, I was making excuses.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to, and it's not just like you're misleading people. I'm sure you, as a fan, like you want to love this stuff.
Yeah, look, it broke my heart. I didn't love that. It really did.
Yeah.
And so, immediately after that, because they were about to start shooting Justice League, you started to hear they sent a big contingent of press out to the UK set.
Yeah, that was very suspicious. When in June,
and I've been on set visits, and I've held on to those stories for a year.
Yeah, usually it's like 6 to 8 months. Like you're not allowed to share those set reports.
Like I went to the set the Dark Knight in Chicago, and that was in June of 2007. I don't think it was till like May of the next year before those stories came out.
Yeah.
So they had that, and I could not go to that thing because it just logistically was in the UK, and the stories were sent out immediately. It
felt like press, like they were trying to dress this up, right?
Let's call it what it is. It was a bit of a fluff piece. It was a promo to try to negate a lot of the negative that was still in the air about BVS.
And for those of you who don't remember, just to kind of add a little to what you're saying, Bill, because some people may not recall, in June of 2016, there was a whole spate of set reports, and Vulture was kind of the first one. I don't know if you guys remember that, but Vulture was dropping a lot of articles about things they gleaned from the set. And that was sort of unprecedented. And guys like Bill and I would talk in private, like, this is not normal. This never happens. This is totally them trying to turn the public perception of DC on film around a bit, because BVS had kind of gone poorly for them 3 months prior. So that was unprecedented, allowing people on the set in June, and then instantly, as soon as they come back, to write back, to start spreading everything they heard. And it's just, it was a weird scenario. Something was definitely up, right?
Yes. And, you've heard Jeff Johns and John Berg were going to be on set daily. You heard that, and even I think during the interviews, I don't know who asked, but I mean, one of the members of the press corps asked Miss Snyder, who's a producer, about Justice League 2, and it was. That's
when they said it's just one movie, right?
Yeah, it's one movie. It was never going to be two movies. Well, that's not what it was about, So
it seemed like things were changing, and they didn't want to admit it, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and I still at that point, and they overtly wanted to kept saying it's going to be different. It's going to be more quote unquote fun. It's going to be lighter, blah blah blah. And I still at that time, I was still fine with it.
Okay.
I didn't have any reason to worry. In fact, I welcomed it, saying, okay, I really didn't like BVS, but
it sounds like they're making some adjustments.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So there we were.
Okay. Yeah. Now, sort of the next phase now is we reach spring of 2017.
Yeah.
And here's where I believe, we both started hearing the same whispers, but the difference was I was working over at the Splash Report with Kelvin Chavez, and we kind of put the story out there. Mid-May, we kind of let the world know that, hey, folks, Justice League is about to basically be remade. At the time, I don't even think we didn't know about the Joss Whedon element of it. I think we kind of thought it was going to be more like what happened with Rogue One, a Star Wars story, where Lucasfilm quietly brought in Tony Gilroy to rewrite and direct like half of that movie.
Yeah.
But somehow they got away with it, and the movie turned out fine, and it was okay. So, like, at the time, it seemed like that's all it was going to be. And I put that story out there, and I believe this is around the time where you and I first really spoke, because you saw that and you quickly said, like, yeah, that's what I'm hearing too.
Yes.
And I guess that was just an interesting time. And I remember what it was like for me, but I'm just curious for you. Like, now when you are out there reporting and putting it out there that Justice League, the Zack Snyder movie, is basically being completely overhauled 6 months before its release date. What do you remember the reaction being like? Like, what reaction did you get a lot online from your neck of the woods?
Death threats, complete denial from the fan base that it was true, that they took the cover story, hook, line, and sinker, that Joss Whedon was simply going to, quote unquote, finish Zack's vision.
Yeah, because that came out like 2 weeks after my report, where they added the Whedon element to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was just so much denial and anger and venom, right?
It was. Yeah, absolutely. And all I said was, hey, I said, look, these reshoots are not standard pickups. They are significant. Yeah. Significant. And that just led to a rage against me and Batman on film. Personal attacks, and that's what happened.
That's what happened.
That's what was going on.
That's what happened. But to me, it's also related to this bizarre thing where people think that just because you report it, that you feel it, like you're reporting it because this is your agenda. Whereas, no, I'm just passing along information, guys. I'm letting you know that this Hallmark movie event is basically being totally turned around. We've all been waiting years for this. There's been all this build-up leading to it. And here we are in May, and they're apparently going to like remake the thing. We were like the Paul Revere's, like letting everyone know, hey, guys, Justice League isn't going to be what you think it is.
It turned into that I hated Zack Snyder and that I had no compassion for his family tragedy. I'm a father of 3 kids.
Yeah.
You're a father. That is absolutely a parent's worst nightmare.
And it's a heinous accusation.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I like Zack Snyder. I was fortunate to meet him several times. He visited with me for 30 minutes straight, one-on-one, at a Warner Brothers party at Comic-Con back when they were
doing 300 or Watchmen.
No. It was Sucker Punch.
Oh, okay.
Sucker Punch. So I think it's like 2011. I knew his publicist very well. At the Man of Steel premiere after party in New York, he visited with me and my wife.
Yeah.
I have no ill. Mario, just a couple of months before all this, through Warner Brothers, he calls me and says, hey, would you be interested in exclusively dropping the first in-theater poster for Justice League?
Wow.
For 2 hours,
Yeah.
And so this never was about... You know what I'm saying?
No, I get it. And people don't.
I want to make that clear.
Yeah, absolutely. But people have this misconception that if you wrote a report and it's got your name on it, that somehow you are responsible for that news and this news reflects your internal opinions. When really, I'm just sharing what I heard and that's it.
Absolutely.
But if we're being honest, I'm just curious, what you think of this, because there was perhaps, at least on my end, I'll speak for myself and then you tell me what you think. There was a slight conflict of interests in reporting this, in that on some internal level, I was happy about the changes, and this is before they announced the Autumn Snyder stuff.
Yeah.
This is when I just heard that they were going to be redoing and doing a major sort of 180 on Justice League. On some level, I was sort of like, okay, good. DC sees that this isn't necessarily going the right way for them. They're taking the information in and they're making changes. I, on the surface, was kind of happy about that. But I also kind of made sure to keep that to myself. Like even in the
Yes.
reporting, I didn't sound at all happy about this news. And I
No.
even made sure to like say like, folks, this is no reason for concern. And I even brought up the Rogue One thing. I'm like, Rogue One last year was majorly overhauled and it still ended up a good movie. So let's not panic. This doesn't mean that Justice League is a disaster, but it just means that like some major things are changing. So be ready for that,
Yes.
But I'm just curious for you, like, as a fan, though, separate of being a blogger and trying to be responsible for how you influence other people, separate of that, was it a little like, didn't you feel a little bit like, I'm glad that they're making changes?
Yeah.
Right? Like it was, it was an interesting feeling on all this for me. But that sort of started changing as soon as the official narrative came out, because I, for one, didn't like that they brought up Autumn Snyder's suicide and kind of made that seem like the real story. Like, oh, this is only happening because he has to go mourn his daughter and Whedon is coming in just to do 2 weeks of pickups and it's all Zack's vision. To me, it felt like very poor taste, very distasteful to use a real personal tragedy to basically explain your own studio maneuvering. They wanted him out. They were tweaking his movie for the year leading up to that. But now it felt like they were vultures, like they were using this real life tragedy to sort of explain how they pushed him out the door. And
it was hard to it was hard to tell the truth. A lot of more people than me and you knew what was going on.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And there was that tragedy that prevented people from saying that because you come off looking like an asshole.
Yeah.
And rightfully so.
And there were
people. Optics would be terrible.
Yeah, and there were people who were assholes. I mean, there were people online right after that article came out saying, "Oh, I bet she did that because of his movies," or like people were like making light or saying like people retweeted the THR article which talks about the backstory as if it was the best news ever. Like they were so happy, not acknowledging the tragic element of the story.
Oh,
so
I'm sure there. Yeah.
So there were lots of people who absolutely came off as a-holes. I feel like you and I, we as fathers knew better than to even go anywhere near that subject in that way. But it did make it hard to talk about it, right? Because if you wanted to talk about the changes, it felt like you were being, insensitive or making light of his tragedy.
That was from June through
November,
and really, and frankly, into 2018, because that was still the narrative. The narrative didn't start. The truth, I don't think the whole truth really came out yet.
Yeah.
Completely. I mean, but people, let's just be honest. Everyone who went to see, except the ones who knew.
Yeah.
But 99% of that fan base went in to see Justice League in November of 2017, thinking that was Zack Snyder's movie.
Yeah, because
that Joss Whedon had just simply finished Zack's vision.
Yeah, that's what all the actors had said. That's what all the studio executives and producers had said.
Everybody.
The official company line, if you were reading anything in the lead up to Justice League, was this is Zack's movie 100%. Whedon is only coming in to do a couple of weeks of just some mild things, and that's what the people who were coming after us were like, they were all in denial about. They were saying, no, this is Zack's movie. I remember dealing with like when they announced that Junkie XL was gone and Danny Elfman was in. Yeah. That was in me another example. Like, guys, this is not the Zack Snyder movie. But people were still so like, no, you're being such a hater. This is all. I mean, people were like, the denial was real. And what you're saying is accurate. That most of the fandom and definitely the general public had no idea the full extent of that overhaul until November 17th when they got to see the movie. Opening weekend occurred with most people coming to it thinking this is a Zack Snyder movie. So that you're absolutely right on that. And you recently brought that up on your social hour. And someone from another podcast somehow took that to mean that you were saying that the theatrical cut was Snyder's vision. And it's like, that's not what you were saying. You were saying that everyone thought that.
Officially.
Yes, on the record, that was Zack Snyder's movie. Even when you go to go see it, what does it say in the credits? Directed by Zack Snyder, a film by Zack Snyder. And
the plan all along, Mario, was for this never to come out. That's just, and I think even if the tragedy hadn't happened, that was still the plan. They brought Joss Whedon on early in 2017.
Yeah.
Under the ruse of he's going to direct a Batgirl movie.
Yeah.
But he was really involved with Justice League.
Yeah.
Well before anybody knew he was involved with Justice
and that's an interesting part of the story that I'd like to see sort of expanded upon at some point. But okay, but if we're going chronologically, right? The last milestone I brought up was spring of 2017 when we find out this movie is being completely redone. Now, you go to see the movie. I remember you saw it like the Tuesday, right? You remember you went, you and Rick went to like a press screening. I remember hearing about that.
So me. No, I think Rick went, but I was still in Houston. It was me and my wife.
All right.
My wife went.
Yeah. But I remember you guys got to see it like a few days early, and I remember. Well, I want to just ask you, like, now as we're going through the chronology of this. So now you know that they made changes. You know you've been fighting with fans for the last few months about how extensive the changes are. Now you sit down in a theater, as you say it, a theater to watch it. What did you feel when it ended and you're walking out of that theater? What are you feeling?
I can't lie because it's on video. I had my wife video reaction. I just said, it's not the dumpster fire. That I thought it was going to be. And I didn't hate it. You know, did I love it? No. Did I hate it? No. It was okay.
It was middle of the road entertainment.
And I enjoyed it more than I did BVS, to be perfectly honest. And that's just, that's me.
Yeah. All right. But so that's you as Bill the fan. Now you as Bill the blogger who's been arguing with people for 6 months about what's really happening to this movie. How did you feel seeing that, like, this is clearly not a Zack Snyder movie? You know what I mean? This is clearly some studio creation.
That point, it was crickets from that group. And honestly, they continued on. They didn't say anything. It's a lot of like, when you want to love something and you don't. It's hard.
It was like you with BVS.
To own up to it.
Yeah, when you wanted to love it.
Me and BVS. It's me and Batman Returns as well. And so it was like I said. And then once Mr. Snyder started teasing things online, and the fans realized that this wasn't, and those guys were right, but they're going to say that we were
no one ever admitted it. No one ever came back after the death threats to say, oh, by the way, I'm sorry for being so mad at you.
So then that's when, the whole hashtag contingent started. And, I knew from Warner Brothers, they had no intention of ever releasing that film. And frankly, let's be technical. Warner Bros. Is not releasing this new movie. That's an HBO Max joint. All the way. Warner Brothers signed off to have them be able to do that, and they're the ones that officially put the money into completing it. So
well, and we're going to get into that because that's obviously one of the milestones, the actual announcement and how it came to be. But before we get to that part of the chronology, I also just kind of want to share, like, for me, what happened when the theatrical cut came out.
Absolutely.
Because what was interesting was I had spent the same sort of 6 months just dealing with people saying horrible things about me all the time and coming at me and loading the comment sections of my articles and coming after me on Twitter. And, so I had been through that same sort of like battle, right? But when I saw the movie and I saw how completely sort of defanged it had been and how completely changed it was, and that they really did basically steal Snyder's movie, keep his name on it, but completely tweak everything about it, I sort of I changed a little bit where it felt like, you know what? These people are now all going to realize this, and I don't want to kick them when they're down. You know what I mean? I feel like they've clearly sort of lost. The Snyderverse is clearly in the rearview mirror. My sort of fandom has clearly won because now we're pushing forth in a different direction, and it's one that, I'm anticipating with some optimism. And I just tried to, like, from now on, rather than engage with these people who are obviously hurting and obviously angry about what happened, and they're also upset about the using of Autumn's suicide as part of the cover up. You know, I started just taking more of the tact of, I'm just going to mute these people and move on. Like, I don't want to interface with them. And if I do talk about this stuff, I'm going to try to be as like even keeled as possible, because it's clear their side of this battle lost. And for a few years, that was the case. You know, it was like they're clearly now part of something that's no longer happening. I'm going to put my focus on the future, and that's it. But, so I just wanted to mention that, because you and I, in the time since, you and I have taken slightly different tracks on how we deal with those extremely volatile people. And I think sometimes that gets you a reputation because you give it to them, and you know how to be sarcastic and biting with your GIFs, and you kind of, you can kind of scoff.
Yes.
And for me, it's like, I don't engage in any of that, because I'm just like, listen, they lost. I mean, listen, now with the Snyder Cut actually coming out, it's a slightly different story. But for a couple of years there, I was just like, I'm not going to poke that beehive, because that beehive, they're now part of something that's in the past tense. So I'm not going to worry about them, Well,
I grew up an athlete, and I was a coach. I'm competitive. But with that said, I have muted and blocked my way on Twitter and social media, where I honestly, it's pure luck. I don't want to call it luck, but it's happenstance. It's a fluke. If I see anything directed toward me, and unless someone sends me something directly, something, hey, you see a link or something. But I mean, I was a bit put off, I guess, that not that I wanted anyone to say, "Oh, well, you were right all along."
Yeah.
It wasn't that. It was that you
like, they didn't let up. They went straight from saying you're a liar and you hate him to you're a terrible person who is happy about the suicide. Like, I mean, they never took a break.
Never stopped, and there never was this, not that they acknowledged it. It was just, you forgot what you were raging about for 6-7 months, and calling me names and threats and all this other nonsense. It's ridiculous nonsense. Now it's something else. Now, it's when you say legitimately, look, Warner Brothers doesn't want to release this. They're not going to release it. They don't want to. I mean, officially to them, the movie they put in the cinemas in November was the Zack Snyder Cut. I know it's not the Zack Snyder Cut.
Yeah.
You know it's not the Zack Snyder Cut.
But that's that's the company
all I'm
line.
telling you.
Yeah.
They really were not
well,
going to do that.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because that's kind of the next phase of the story now, because then there was this whole chapter where for like 2 or 3 years, everyone would come asking bloggers and reporters, like, is it happening? Is it happening? And then those of us who could speak to someone at the studio would tell you, no, it's not. I spoke to such and such, and they said it's a pipe dream. It's not going to happen. There's no chance in hell. And nowadays, people have this revisionist history, like, oh, see, this means you were wrong. And why can't you just admit you were wrong? And it's like, but we were not wrong. That's the thing that's kind of hard to explain to people. Warner Brothers then and now wants nothing to do with the Snyder Cut or the Snyderverse. This only happened because of the way the stars aligned. There was no HBO Max prospect in 2017. The move to streaming wasn't really a thing. Like, there were so many different things that, I mean, the entire leadership running the DC division at Warner Brothers got fired and replaced and evolved like 2 or 3 times since then. Before we arrived at Walter Hamada, there was the Jeff Johns, John Berg, Diane Nelson era. Yeah. And even and then after the Hamada era, now we're stepping into this area where Jim Lee seems to be calling a lot of the creative shots. Like, there've been a lot of different evolutions of the power structure there. So much has changed between now and 2017, 18, that like, you cannot act like what happened today contradicts what we were telling you 3 years ago. Because 3 years ago, that regime, that administration, that studio wanted nothing to do with this. So it's not that we were wrong, but something changed. A different entity greenlit it.
Yes. And there's three letters, and they're not HBO.
Uh-oh.
It's AT&T.
Oh, ATT? Yeah.
AT&T
Yeah.
bought Warner
Yeah.
Media,
Yeah.
and HBO Max streaming is their thing.
Yeah.
That's their thing.
And that's it. And they found a neat way to sort of start, trying to create buzz for the platform, And
Yeah.
that's something too that
Yeah.
I've noticed since the launch of HBO Max, is that it seems geared towards sort of like fanboyish stuff. They have these hubs for like anime and Crunchyroll, all these kinds of like interesting, very sort of niche things. And it seems like part of the mantra of the platform is to appeal to more like, kind of like geeks with intense sort of nerdy fandoms. That's just something I've noticed.
They want it to rival Disney Plus. I mean, and when you own DC Comics and all that comes with it, and you own those IPs, then
you're going to want to find a way to maximize that. And if there's a social media campaign around something that's getting millions of retweets, you're going to pay attention to that,
Yeah.
But, people need to accept and realize that if you go back 2 years, there was still no way this was happening. None of this would have happened without HBO Max and Warner Max and the sort of the new blood coming in and going, okay, we are going to invest some money in this, which, by the way, are going to be our dollars. They're going to be our first dollars, because people brought that up in the beginning too. Like, why are they going to spend another $70 million on this movie? Remember, this is a different bank account now. Warner Max didn't spend the $325 million that Justice League cost. This whatever reported figure of $70 million. These are their first dollars ever spent on it. It's such a unique scenario where people like to glaze right through all those nuances and just go, see, I have a tweet from you from November 18th, the day after the movie came out, saying that there's not going to be an alternate cut of this movie. See, you liar. Yeah. And it's like, you just don't pay attention, and you're really clearly just out to share your anger. That's why for me, though, when I see that, I don't engage. As soon as I see that sort of nonsense, it's like, mute. Move on. I'm not going to go there, But listen, I feel like if we're going to harp on some of the more aggressive aspects of it, I do feel like we should give credit where credit is due, though.
Yeah.
Because that campaign and the fact that it never went anywhere was kind of, it's a very novel thing. There's never been this sort of thing before where fans campaign hardcore for over 3 years for an alternate cut of a movie that a studio does not want to see. And now all of a sudden it's happening, and on top of that, throughout that, the positive members of that movement were able to do, fundraising for suicide prevention and all that, and try to turn it into a more humanitarian effort. So I feel like we got to give credit where credit's due. There's lots of fans who would love to, campaign for things or make changes to their favorite franchise, but they're not actually doing it. These Snyder Cut fans were able to make enough noise to get their movie, and I feel like that's...
I understand. Yeah. Because it's why I started Batman on film almost 23 years ago, and campaigned for a good Batman film after Batman and Robin.
Yeah.
I wish that, and I know that there are a lot of good fans who were behind this. Okay, is the Snyder DC view my thing? No, I mean it's not my deal. But you like it, cool, and you did this for positive reasons. Yeah, I get you, and I'm with you, and I respect that.
Yeah,
I wish that, frankly, I wish Mr. Snyder at some point had said publicly, hey guys,
thanks for the support, but quit with the harassment.
Toxic fans. I appreciate what your support. Yeah. But this is not the way we should be doing it. And I don't condone that. That never happened, and it's not just, I am just one, we're two of many people who were the recipients of this.
Anyone who didn't speak glowingly of Snyder's DC movies became public enemy number one. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, okay. Now I'm just curious too, with it coming out and because of the negative experience you've had with people within the campaign, I'm just curious, like when you heard it's coming now now we've arrived at that point in the chronology. Last year around April, whenever it was in 2020, when they said it's coming, Yeah, were you happy or sad, or was there a part of you that's like, oh, now I'm never going to hear the end of it from these people who think I was lying to them?
Thankfully, I don't put too much stock in those folks.
Yeah.
And I'm also done this for so long that I've got a pretty thick skin.
Yeah.
I just honestly, I got a heads up about 2 weeks before this, before it was announced. And I'm just like, I can't believe that they're going to spend money on this.
Yeah.
And at that time, I was not clear on the dynamics.
Yeah, on where the money was coming from. You're just, wait a minute, Warner's going to do this again?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I got you.
So I get why HBO Max is doing this. You had a pandemic. There was a lack of content.
Yeah.
You had a very small, in the grand scheme of things, the whole hashtag movement really is it's a piss in the ocean as compared to everybody who's aware, you know? And that's, I don't mean that as disrespect.
Yeah,
I'm trying to use an analogy and to make what I'm saying.
Of course. Listen, people parse words very oddly, but I know what you were going for. And to me, your point also goes to the larger picture of Twitter is not real life. And people feel like, well, my entire feed is this topic, so this must be the hottest thing everyone's talking about. And people don't realize that, no, your feed is populated by an algorithm that just keeps feeding you more of the things you're interested in. So you get this impression that this is the hottest topic in the world, when no, it's just the hottest topic on your particular feed.
It's like, this is trending, and I'm like, it's trending for you because you like this stuff, I get it. Okay. So, but no, look, honestly, I just couldn't believe that they were going to put money into it. That was my just initial shock. Is wow, you're going to spend money on something that was a total disaster? Really? Oh, well, and it's not. And I'm a director-driven guy. That's my complaint against the Marvel films, that they were very TV-ish.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Kind of run like a television production,
like movies by committee.
I like most of them. I like, so there's no knock on the Marvel films.
Yeah.
I prefer what Nolan did with the Dark Knight trilogy, or Zack Snyder did, frankly, with BVS. I may not like the end product,
but it's bold,
but I will support you to do it.
Yeah.
I'd rather that and not like it, and then to have
something that just feels safe,
a producer
and
in a studio crank this stuff out.
Yeah.
Same goes with Tim Burton and Batman Returns.
Yeah.
Don't like Batman Returns, but I will support and I will be in favor of that approach.
Yeah.
I will. And
and I want to ask you though, like, you as a fan, like when you think back in the theatrical cut, let's say that was the only Justice League movie that came out. Let's say this wasn't happening with the Zack Snyder one. How do you feel satisfied as a Batman fan that was like the Justice League movie that you thought we deserved? Or do you feel like, man, that, because to me, that Justice League felt so toothless and forgettable that even though I didn't hate it, I resent it for the mere fact that it was so bland. You know what I mean? I feel like the first ever Justice League movie should blow my mind. As someone who has been following Superman since he was 3, who on some level has been dreaming of seeing these characters do it. And I know that's not you. You like Batman on his own, but I'm sure on some level a Justice League movie was probably on the back burner of your wish list. Maybe. No? Wow.
Like I said, I was all in on it once.
Yeah.
They were going that direction, but it's something that I personally want based on my fandom.
Yeah.
No, so I think that kind of affects where I am on what we got is that, okay, I didn't hate this.
Yeah.
So, good.
Okay.
But as the DC fan in me, as someone who grew up reading DC comics, I would like it. I wish it had been a success, and I wish the whole thing had been different.
Yeah.
From the beginning. And I look back that Justice League Mortal
the George Miller.
That seemed to be something that would be more of into my wheelhouse.
More your speed. Yeah.
Yes, because it was more grounded. You had a actually you had a human who was the villain and so forth. So,
by the way, don't you think now, just, since we're
mm-hmm.
looking back then, now you brought up Justice League Mortal, and I've got you here, and you're such a Nolan fan. Do you think it would have been weird having like two Batman, having Armie Hammer's Batman in 2010 and Justice League Mortal in the middle of the Nolan trilogy? Like, like did that approach? Do you think that could have worked?
Then no.
It would have been confusing,
now,
right?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Now maybe. Because we're actually getting some of this kind of stuff. We're going to have Keaton and Affleck and the Flash, and whatever. But anyway,
it's wild.
So, yeah, I mean, I think the chance right now, like for for Batman and a Superman in a movie together, and then a Justice League, we've kind of just they missed the boat,
Yeah, to me that's the other thing too. You can't. You don't get a second chance to make a first impression. And now whenever they do eventually, because you got to know at some point there will be another attempt to make a Justice League. I don't know when it'll be, but there will be. Yeah. Unfortunately, that's going to be like, let's try this again, as opposed to here's the momentous first time. And I guess that's the difference between you and I as a fan. Like for me, as soon as Iron Man came out in 2008, and they announced that Marvel was essentially building to this Avengers crossover. We're going to get to meet 4 of the key Avengers in their own solo films, and then it's all going to culminate in one huge spectacle. The second I heard about that, I was like, I cannot wait to see Justice League done in this way. Like there was a part of me that just was longing for that sort of approach to come our way. So for me, Justice League being somewhat just vanilla and forgettable and okay just feels darn right offensive, So
I think we're at the point now where just make the Justice League film. I mean, I think
just like drop into it. You mean? Yeah.
Just make it. Don't worry about it connected. Make a Justice League film.
Yeah.
I don't think you don't have to have Robert Pattinson be Batman.
Yeah. I mean, you could do like the Mortal concept now, where especially because we're talking about the multiverse, right?
And then plus you have HBO Max now, which that could be I would love to see Justice League Frontier, the comic book, turned into an HBO Max miniseries. Or I've also said I would love to see Kingdom Come turned into an HBO Max.
That to me is like a bucket list. Yeah. If they ever announced
like Watchmen. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. If it was like HBO done with Watchmen level production value, with that sort of casting, that sort of seriousness, and they announced it's Kingdom Come, I mean, you could just kill me right after the last episode. I'm done. I'm good.
I think Warner Brothers and all the whole thing, I think they're okay with that now. Their whole approach seems to be, we're just going to make good DC movies. We're going to do our best to make good DC movies. Yeah. We've got the Batman here. It has nothing to do with any things that are quote connected. You had Joker. I think at some point, hopefully we'll get a Superman film. And I think it'll be they'll hire a filmmaker who has a passion for that character, like Matt Reeves has with Batman, and they'll do it that way, and let that guy with his vision and go that route. Yeah. So, I am banging the drum for a Superman film. So just make good movies, and so
just make good movies.
You're gonna. Yeah.
But with that in mind, though, because you said, we know that like the studio is happy with HBO Max as a platform for other takes on things. But I know the studio feels that way, and that the studio's cool about the multiverse. But I want to know about you as a fan, Bill, because sometimes when I see the way you talk about Zack Snyder's Justice League or whatever, I guess it just brings up the question, like, if you know that this is an Elseworld tale, can you enjoy it for what it is, and will you be excited to see if it leads to elsewhere? Or do you want to just hope that this is the cul-de-sac and you really you're not going to give it a chance because you're so burnt out on it? Like, in other words, I'm just trying to figure out, like, because on HBO Max, in theory, this stuff could continue. But, how do you feel about that?
Personally, the fan in me, I don't have any interest in seeing Zack Snyder Justice League. I don't like BVS.
Yeah,
I know a lot about this movie. it's just not my cup of tea.
Yeah.
If it's yours, not, and I don't mean you,
Yeah,
Mario,
yeah.
just in general.
Yeah.
If that's yours, I knock yourself out. I'm happy for you.
Yeah.
I don't
Like,
because
okay.
of the I'll put. Let me say this, and you can.
Yeah.
I think with Gala and Momoa and Miller, with their contracts really being more with Warner Brothers Pictures, that I don't see that world continuing on HBO Max because Warner Brothers Pictures has plans for Wonder Woman 3 and Aquaman 2, and they got The Flash coming, which seems to be going to kind of tweak things a little bit continuity-wise. So, but I would love to see DC properties on HBO Max. The Snyderverse, I couldn't get behind that personally as a fan.
But I'm just curious though, because you did start off this conversation by discussing how much you would have loved to have seen Ben Affleck's Batman, right? And we never really got around to really experiencing him, like in BVS.
That's a whole different show too.
That's a whole different show, but everything felt like a tease. Like in BVS, I enjoyed his Batman. I don't have the qualms about the no kill rule and all that stuff. I was enjoying where that was going, and I wanted to see more between him and Jeremy Irons. I wanted to see a movie that takes place before he's this bitter and jaded, before the murder of Robin. Like I was looking so forward to getting to see Ben Affleck's Bruce Wayne in action in his own little trilogy of movies, so to speak. So, but for you though, so as someone who was on the Ben Affleck train even before the rest of us were, you mean to tell me that if a week after Zack Snyder's Justice League, they announce, because based on its huge success, right? This is all hypotheticals. But let's say just like with Wonder Woman 84, where like 3 days later they announce a sequel because so many people were streaming it. So let's say Justice League comes out, creates all this positive buzz, and then they fire off a press release that Ben Affleck is going to do his own 4-part Batman miniseries for HBO Max. You mean to tell me you're going to turn your nose up at that?
No, I wouldn't turn my nose up at that. No.
So you would, but technically that's in the Snyderverse.
I'm gonna be honest. Just that now, the running Batman on film guy, that part of me is like, that's good for Batman on film website. But
like you don't feel ripped off that you never got to see him like on his own. You wouldn't like jump at the chance to see him and Jeremy Irons.
I would enjoy. I would be in favor of seeing that. Yes.
Okay.
I would.
And as long as it doesn't interfere with Matt Reeves, as long as it's made clear.
Am I campaigning for that? Do I think? No. I think what they're doing with the Batman is more jabs, more with my sensibilities. But yeah, I'd be okay with that.
Because I feel like as long as they made it clear, like don't even call it Batman, call it like the storyline title. You know what I mean? Like imagine there was a miniseries called The Long Halloween or Hush.
I think that, and this is just me, educated guess and things I've heard. Warner Brothers is so all in on the Batman, and with it having a spinoff series on HBO Max and it may not be the only one.
That's true. Yeah. The Gotham PD being on HBO Max does kind of make it.
There could be some maybe one or two more they're tie into with the Batman that I think maybe that could be preventative or a detriment to that. And and I'll ask you this, and I think this is a lot of people, and I say this as a Ben Affleck fan, and someone who felt for him when he went through all the bullshit he was going through, the pressure he had on to make a solo Batman film, right?
Yeah. He was so over it there by the end of that. Yeah.
Maybe now, yes, he spent a day or two doing the additional photography for Justice League for the nightmare.
Yeah, maybe
scene.
putting the cowl on made him feel.
Maybe he's maybe doing the Flash.
Yeah,
is something he's doing because it may give him a cool way to in a positive manner exit the role in a positive
some closure.
Manner.
Yeah,
and he wants to do other things. I think people
underestimate
Ben Affleck's our Batman, and we want him forever. And have you stopped to think all the shit this guy went through over this?
Yeah.
And maybe he's happy with these two things, and he's ready to do other things because he's a fantastic writer and director.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what he continues to do next.
But yes, I would be anxious to see.
Okay, I wanted to get you on the record.
Ben Affleck miniseries.
All
yes,
right.
I would be personally. The fan of me, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay,
absolutely.
And technically that's in the Snyderverse. So I'm getting you on the record here saying that if there was a continuation, so to speak, and if it was like especially Batman centric, you would check that out.
And I want it to be Ben Affleck's.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Version,
obviously. Yeah.
With writing it, even though it's technically part of the Snyderverse, but really comes from his. What his take on Batman
from his
is,
creative wheel there.
Yes.
I got you. Absolutely. I would be so all in for that, but realistically, everything you pointed out it makes it unlikely. Not to mention also his schedule. I mean, he just added like 2 new movies in the last couple of months, and he's a very busy guy, so I don't see where he was going to get the time to do this.
I am so happy that he's back doing some good stuff.
Yes,
really.
But I do like that in this hypothetical, you would be on for that.
Absolutely.
So that's good. Because listen, there's people who feel like you just hate all that and you just want it all to go away. So now I've got you here on the record. Okay.
Yeah.
What?
No.
And before we move again, because we're going to wrap up shortly. I know we're running low on time here, but before we wrap up on Snyder and the Snyderverse,
sure.
I do just want to say that, like, remember how I said I started taking a different approach after the theatrical cut came out. Basically, since the fall of 2017, I've been far less hostile and aggressive with those people. And I guess the thing I want to impart on you is that, like, for me, like, I now have a lot of friends who are from the Snyder Cut world, who aren't from that toxic, awful, gross hive of fans. And I just kind of want to put that out there that, like, if you can turn the other cheek once in a while, there's a lot of good people there. I think about, like, I have a married couple, like Maria Hay and Dusty. They're a married couple, Maria and Dusty. Like, they would listen to both of us, and they're both hopelessly devoted to the idea of Batfleck returning. But at some point they felt like you were so negative on the prospect of that it was just like, you didn't want to give it a chance, and it felt like you were coming for them.
No, it's the same thing. It's the same thing as saying the Snyder Cut, or I'm sorry, Joss Whedon's reshoots aren't.
Yeah. So it's the thing where they're confusing your opinion with what's going on.
Yes, it's saying I like Ben Affleck as Batman.
Yeah.
That I always have. I've been a supporter for years.
Yeah.
From what I know, I don't see that happening.
Yeah.
And I just said to you, admitted, if it happened, I would enjoy it. I would cover it on Batman on Film.
Yeah.
So there is a bit of misconception. A bit. There's a lot of misconception. When it comes to me and
I got
and how I feel about that.
Okay.
And I've got people who work for Batman on Film who love BBS.
I know you do. Peter loves Batfleck and all that.
And
I know.
chomping at the bit for the Snyder Cut coming out.
Yeah.
I interviewed the guy who wrote the book, Sean O'Connell.
Yeah,
I didn't, but my guys did.
Yeah, there is a diversity of opinion at BOF.
Yes.
It's not, So, okay, so I just wanted to touch on that, though, because over the years, like, I found that, like, my relationship with people who tweet those hashtags out has evolved a lot over the years because I just ignore the idiots. The ones who come at me with just pure anger and they're all misinformed and they don't seem to understand the fundamentals of a reporter doesn't want the things they're reporting. They're just reporting, okay? I've been through all that, but in these last several years, I've gotten to know a great deal of people who adore Snyder and who are actually sane about it. And I just kind of want to acknowledge those people since we did discuss a lot that, there were a lot of dummies out there.
I've said many times there are. It's unfortunate
that the toxic ones are the loudest.
For them. Yes.
Yeah.
At the same time, I think they're a little bit bigger of a minority the minority than people let on, and I wish that someone had shut that down. And I think at one point there could have been a better way
That's fair.
to do that. And I have been a proponent of good online fandom for years, and that goes back for a long time. I'm against. I can't stand toxic bad fandom at all, and because it ends up making the good ones. And I consider myself a good one. I'm sorry, if you don't believe me, but I am a good guy. It makes us look bad when people act a fool.
I got
and
you.
That's what the general public thinks about people who like Batman, Superman.
Yeah.
Wonder Woman.
It's true. It brings us down a notch when we all just seem like angry mouth breathers who can't process news.
Correct.
All right, but before I let you go now, now we're here. Now we're in 2021. Zack Snyder's Justice League is coming out next month. But, the Suicide Squad is right around the corner and the Batman is coming next year. We're kind of moving into a new era of DC. And with this multiverse concept in full swing, and there's all this news about the Flashpoint movie and Supergirl and all this stuff. So I'm just curious today, as of today, how are you feeling about DC on film and what's coming, and the future?
Best I have in a long time.
Yeah,
really, yes, absolutely.
So you're optimistic about the multiverse and everything you're hearing about the projects on the way.
Yes, I hope they do more stuff on HBO Max, like Peacemaker. They're doing off of the Suicide Squad and. Gotham Central with the Batman. I want to see more DC stuff. So yeah, I really do. I mean,
so you're psyched.
I know Birds of Prey didn't do all that great at the box office, but I really liked it, and I got it, and that was a director-driven film.
Yeah,
keep it
up.
That
was Kathy Ann's movie.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm excited, and 23-year-old Bill can't barely contain how excited I am to see Michael Keaton.
That's gonna be nuts.
Batman again.
That's gonna be so nuts.
If this, what I hear from multiple people, that this is going to springboard into some kind of riff off of Batman Beyond, The Dark Knight Returns, with him being an aged Bruce, and he's mentoring a successor. Come on, bring it on.
I like that. Okay, good. Because, I'm glad where we're ending here. Because, we started speaking about a time when DC on film looked a little shaky and things were up in the air and there was a lot of dark stuff going on. But now here we are in 2021 and you're looking forward to the future and you're excited where we're at. So that's good news for me to hear. It's good to know that you're happy, because I'm pretty happy too. I know that, like,
happy.
Yeah, like, I know the multiverse thing can seem a little like, it's an easy way to just throw a bunch of stuff at the wall and see what sticks. And if it doesn't stick, well, it was the multiverse. Like, some people are having a little trouble with that, but it doesn't sound like you are. And I'm not so far. As long as the movies are good, bring it on.
I was about to say the same thing.
Yeah.
I think if the movies are good, people will come out and see them.
Amen.
They don't care. They don't care about the continuity and stuff.
Yeah.
Trust me. People went and saw Batman Begins thinking it was a prequel to Batman 89, and people liked it. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Right on. Well, Bill, thank you so much for coming on the Fanboy today. It has been too long. And pretty soon
I love this discussion.
We kind of just let it go a little bit, right? We just spoke about, because it's been an intense couple of years, especially, for the two guys who were the Paul Reveres of Justice League, saying, like, the rewrites are coming. The rewrites are coming. It's been an interesting ride, but the movie comes out next month. I hope it does well, and if it does continue and keep it there on HBO Max, I'm happy with what's going on the big screen. I'm in a good place. You're in a good place. Yeah. Thanks for coming on, Bill.
Absolutely.
I'll see you on one of your shows pretty shortly. Right? Always a pleasure having Bill on the show, and I'm going to have him on again at some point, and I'm going to be on his show pretty soon, so I will be sure to let y'all know when that's going to happen. Before I wrap things up this week, I also want to make a quick announcement that Revenge of the Fans is evolving. And for now, one of the first things I could tell you about that evolution is that we are becoming part of the Wabam Entertainment family. And, my cousin Brandon and his intrepid partner, Isaac Wolf, my friend. They have the Amateur Otaku podcast, and they do they contribute a lot to Wabam. And Revenge of the Fans is going to kind of become part of their little network there. And what Revenge of the Fans is going to become, or, going to continue to be now, is a multimedia entity. Revenge of the Fans is where you get podcasts and vlogs moving forward. And written content is going to not be happening all that much, but the site is going to be turned into a bit of an archive for those of you who want to go back and check out old columns and review old stories and scoops and whatever. The site will continue to live on, but overall, we're kind of just turning this into a podcast network and YouTube channel almost exclusively. And we're doing that under the Wabam Entertainment banner. So check out Wabam, great people. I love the folks who run it. Landon is the man. The people who I've associated with from that, nick of the internet woods, have all been wonderful people. And I'm excited that Revenge of the Fans is going to live on in some way as part of the Wabam family. So everyone, I hope you enjoyed episode 125 of the Fanboy Podcast. Sorry for keeping you waiting an extra week, but listen, it is what it is, all right? So thank you. Be awesome to each other. Maybe be awesome to me and write me a review. Maybe be awesome to yourself and check out that Superman and Lois premiere. And until next week, life is chaos. Be kind. Adiós.